Revenge of the Sith came out May 19th of 2005, which is, let's see, 15 years ago, which it's scary. I had to do the math in my head because I very clearly remember when I got to see it in the theater as a kid. I was 14 years old, and I got to see it on a day that I was very sick. I remember I think I had some kind of, I don't remember if I had a stomach bug or if I just had some acid reflux or what it was, but either way, my stomach felt cramped and terrible that day. But nonetheless, it was a pretty thrilling experience. Revenge of the Sith is the sixth Star Wars film to be released in the United States, the sixth to be produced by George Lucas, and the fourth to be directed by Mr. Lucas. And it is the chronologically third film in the Star Wars franchise, in the Skywalker franchise. In episodes 1 and 2, which I haven't reviewed in full yet, but we'll get to that at another time, but episode 3 shows a brief rundown. The Clone Wars, which is between the Republic, the good guys, and the Separatists, the bad guys, has been going on for 3 years, and the Separatists have kidnapped the Supreme Chancellor of the Republic. The Chancellor is in secret a Sith Lord who has been plotting and stirring up this, fomenting this war from the beginning. He actually designed and planned this war. He's behind both the Separatist movement and the Republic's military buildup, the clone army buildup. So Palpatine is playing both sides here, but he gets kidnapped at this point in the war. And the movie opens up with Anakin and Obi-Wan going to rescue Palpatine above the Republic's capital planet. And it makes for a pretty exciting, visually stimulating space battle. It's definitely the most detailed space battle in all of Star Wars, even compared to the later Star Wars movies released in the Disney era. You have hundreds and hundreds of ships, Star Destroyers, TIE Fighters, Jedi Starfighters, clone X-Wings, or I think they're called ARC 170s, but they're basically the design predecessor of the X-Wing. You have ships that are falling apart, you can see debris in the background slowly breaking away from ships. You can see like this little Death Star laser beam shoot out from underneath the Star Destroyer and blow up a Separatist cruiser, kind of a precursor to the Star Destroyers that we see in Rise of Skywalker, with the red lasers shooting out, blowing up planets. But they get to the Separatist command ship where Palpatine's being held captive by the Separatist leaders General Grievous and Count Dooku. Anakin and Obi-Wan find Palpatine. They are confronted by Dooku, played by the late Christopher Lee, fantastic actor, and sadly gets cut short in this movie. But he has a little duel with Anakin and Obi-Wan. He dispatches Obi-Wan pretty quickly, but this allows some one-on-one between him and Anakin, in which Anakin completely cuts loose, releases his Jedi restraints, and goes on the offensive, and within seconds severs both of Dooku's hands and then decapitates him. This represents the second major step Anakin takes towards becoming Darth Vader. The first one he took in episode 2 when he slaughtered the Sand People for killing his mother. This scene is done pretty well because it not only shows Anakin's first really bad decision in becoming a Sith, but it also shows us Palpatine's direct involvement for the first time. His direct involvement in manipulating Anakin's fall, in which Palpatine, while still shackled to his prison chair, he is watching this duel, and then as soon as Anakin overpowers Dooku, he switches on his Darth Sidious persona and immediately starts goading Anakin into murdering Dooku, which is the conflict there is obviously it's against the Jedi Code to kill someone that is defenseless and to kill someone in anger. It's kind of it's a very pacifist principle. But Anakin does it and then instantly regrets it. He then finds out after this battle's over that Padme, his wife, his secretly married wife, or the lady he's secretly married in episode 2, she is pregnant. The scene when Anakin finds out that Padme's pregnant with Luke and Leia is probably Hayden Christensen and Natalie Portman's best scene together, because they both go through the motions of excited but then scared and then excited again. It's a very well executed scene, and a little visual cue. Padme's hairdo is actually almost the same exact hairdo as Princess Leia in A New Hope, with the little buns in the back of her head. So that was kind of funny, or kind of a nice little callback. But Anakin is assigned by the Jedi Council to start spying on. I'm jumping around here, but he is assigned to start spying on Palpatine by the Jedi Council. The Jedi Council wants him to spy on Palpatine because Palpatine is becoming too powerful in the Senate. His political powers and his military powers have expanded to the point that he's a virtual dictator, and the Jedi are afraid of losing their own control over the Republic, so they start playing a game of chess with Anakin in the middle as a pawn. Anakin resents, obviously deeply resents this because, one, it's a very shifty, very un-Jedi-like thing to do because it's deceitful. It's based on lies, it's based on mistrust, and it's basically a power struggle that's being led by Mace Windu and Yoda. And so Anakin resents being a pawn for the Jedi Council. So he goes to Palpatine. Palpatine sees right through what the Jedi Council's trying to do, and he starts playing his moves some more on Anakin's insecurities. And it's at about the same time this is happening, Anakin learns how he has a vision that his wife, Padme, is going to die in childbirth, and that he will lose his wife and possibly his children. So this kind of hits the accelerator on Anakin's need to do something quickly, his need for answers. He, wants to become a Jedi Master in the first place because he thinks, well, I've accomplished all these great things, I deserve to be a Master. The Jedi Council refuses. The Jedi Council's using him as a pawn against Palpatine, and now Anakin is going to lose his entire family, his only actual family he's ever had since his mother, if he doesn't find some kind of answer to stopping his wife from dying. But he can't turn to the Jedi because the Jedi Code refuses him to marry. It forbids him to marry. And even if he did tell them, they won't help him because the Jedi Code, or the Jedi philosophy during this era, the Republic era, is to let things be as they are. There's a great scene where Anakin asks Master Yoda what to do about losing someone that you care about. And Yoda says, do nothing. Rejoice in their passing to the afterlife, which doesn't justly so, doesn't really satisfy Anakin, because that person would be his wife and his children. So there's a lot of personal turmoil here and lots of mind chess that is happening, where Palpatine is playing on Anakin's insecurities, his anger, and his resentment toward the Council. Palpatine is also promising Anakin that he'll help him learn more power to help stop death, in a scene that I'll discuss here shortly. And Anakin is, he doesn't want to turn his back on the Jedi yet, but he feels like the council has abused and neglected him since he first arrived on Coruscant when he was 9. So he finds himself in a very compromising position. The movie really picks up, and probably one of the best dialogue scenes in all 9 Star Wars movies. That may be a little much. I may change my mind about that later, but definitely in the top 3 best dialogue scenes in the entire series is when Palpatine sits Anakin down and he nails in the final prong to his manipulation strategy to turn Anakin to the dark side. So far, he's promised Anakin, he's told Anakin, you're a great Jedi Knight, you deserve to be on the council, you deserve to be a master, and of course tried to appoint him as a master, but the Jedi Council turned him down. Palpatine knew they would turn him down. Now that he's got Anakin distrusting and resenting the Jedi Order, he now plays his final piece, which is he promises Anakin that he will help Anakin find the secret to saving and preserving life, saving our loved ones, his loved ones, from dying. And he tells us through a Sith fable, a Sith legend of a a Sith Lord named Darth Plagueis the Wise, as Palpatine calls him. And it's a very vague. Even though it's exposition, it's kept very vague in that whether Plagueis actually existed and whether any of it's actually legitimate. But it's so detailed, and there's certain parts of this story that match up with the Star Wars universe as it exists now, that you're inclined to believe it is true. And Palpatine's very good about taking facts as they are and twisting them into something else. He doesn't often lie. He often tells things that are accurate, but he spins them around in such a way that they become lies. So he's a good spin doctor. So he tells Anakin that there was a Sith Lord named Darth Plagueis, learned how to create and save lives using the midichlorians to help influence the Force to create life. And eventually, the irony of the story is Plagueis, who was able to save other people's lives, he himself was killed. He was killed in his sleep by his apprentice, his Sith apprentice. And Palpatine Ian McDiarmid gives such a subtle but slimy performance here, where he kind of like licks the inside of his lip, like down here, as he's describing the apprentice betraying and killing the master, that you instantly think, this guy, this apprentice that murdered the master, that was Palpatine, that was Darth Sidious. And it's all but guaranteed that that's what really happened. And is explored in the Darth Plagueis story, in the Darth Plagueis book, which is now decanonized. But hopefully Disney will either make it canon again or will retell that story, or make a movie about it. Who knows? I'd love to see it if they did. But while this is all going on, Palpatine's making his play for Anakin's loyalty. Obi-Wan is dispatched by the Order to an outer rim world called Utapau to go kill Grievous, who's the last of the Separatist leaders, military leaders, to end the Clone Wars. At the same time, Yoda is sent to Kashyyyk to help Chewbacca and the Wookiees. Yes, Chewbacca is in this movie. Chronologically, it's his first movie appearance in the Skywalker series. And several other Jedi Knights and Masters are dispatched to these other planets, while Palpatine is on Coruscant making his moves on Anakin, which is a part of Palpatine's agenda, keeping the Jedi spread out far apart from each other so they can't stop him while he's doing his dirty work. Obi-Wan fights Grievous, this four-armed cyborg creature. Within about, I think, an hour into the movie, kills Grievous. And then effectively ending the Clone Wars, at least strategically ending the Clone Wars, because the Separatists no longer have a military leadership. They have a bunch of political leaders that are cowardly and don't really know much about how to conduct a war. So the war is effectively over. And the Jedi Order, the Jedi Council, led by Mace Windu, go to demand that Palpatine step down. He refuses. And one of the creepiest performances that Ian McDiarmid gives in the prequels is when he switches from his kindly Palpatine persona to his resentful, bitter, angry Darth Sidious persona. It's when the Jedi pull out their lightsabers and they tell him he's under arrest, and Palpatine goes from the benevolent Palpatine saying, "Oh, you're," I'm paraphrasing, but he says something like, "Oh, Master Jedi, I see General Grievous must be destroyed then. I must say you're here sooner than expected." And then when the Jedi ignite their sabers, Palpatine instantly grits his teeth and says, "Are you threatening me, Master Jedi?" And Windu says, "The Senate will decide your fate." And he says, his voice drops several octaves, and I'm not going to try to mimic it because I would butcher it, but he says, "I am the Senate." And it's such a creepy, demonic personality switch, that it is just well done. The sword fight is not excellent, not very well shot, but it is the final catalyst towards turning Anakin to Darth Vader. As Anakin rushes to save Palpatine, he dismembers Mace Windu to stop him from killing Palpatine, because Anakin needs him to save Padme, and Palpatine blasts Mace Windu out of his office window with his Sith lightning, which signals the beginning of the Jedi Purge and Anakin's final step to becoming Vader. Palpatine initiates Anakin into the Sith. He orders Anakin to destroy the Jedi Temple. Anakin complies. He leads an army of clones, lightsaber in tow, and they proceed to burn down the Jedi Temple, students and all. It's a very horrific, emotionally charged scene. Palpatine issues Order 66, and all the clone troops across the galaxy turn their guns on the Jedi and kill them instantly. Probably the most emotionally pivotal scene in the prequels, and possibly in the whole saga, because this is the very moment when the galaxy and the story as a whole changes completely. From this point on, there will be no more than at the most, three or four Jedi in the films. In the originals, you have Luke, Obi-Wan, Yoda, and then in the sequels, you have Rey, Luke, and that's it. And the Revenge of the Sith is the last movie where there's more than a few dozen Jedi that exist. This is the start of the Jedi Purge, led by Vader on Coruscant burning the temple, and Palpatine issuing this mass genocide. Some people complain that this whole part of the movie is rushed. You would only view it as rushed if you didn't watch the previous two films, in my opinion. Anakin's turn to the dark side is fueled mostly by fear of losing Padme, but also resentment. Resentment that's been building since Episode 1. In Episode 1, Mace Windu refuses to let Anakin become a Jedi apprentice because he's too old. And you can kind of tell by Anakin's reaction, the young boy's reaction, that he resents Mace Windu for that. In Episode 2, Anakin continues to resent the Jedi, particularly Obi-Wan, saying that they're holding him back. And then he becomes more angry when he is disallowed by the Jedi Order to go find his mother until it's too late. And so by the time 3 rolls around, Anakin's wife is pregnant, and he's going to lose her unless someone helps him prevent this. He knows it's going to happen. But nobody in the Jedi Order is going to help him because he's broken the Jedi Code by marrying Padme, by falling in love, and the secret to immortality is a Jedi is a power that apparently, at least my understanding was, a lot of Jedi feared. So Anakin, as far as he was concerned, was alone. I don't think he was necessarily. I think at least Obi-Wan probably would have helped him. I don't know, because that's not the way the story goes, but it's reasonable to think that Anakin was by himself. And the only person that cared about him was Palpatine, which he didn't, but he's a manipulator. That's what manipulators do. They make you feel comforted. They make you feel like everybody else in the world is against you except that person. And they'll wrap their arms around you and keep you safe. So the character of Anakin is in a very emotionally traumatizing situation. He's been emotionally traumatized since episode 1, losing his mother to slavery, in 2, losing her to death, and then in 3, he's going to lose his wife in childbirth. I mean, that's going to be an emotionally fragile person. So it doesn't seem inconceivable that he would take drastic steps to prevent that. Now, killing kids, yeah, I think that's a bit much. I think everything that needs to be said has already been said about that. But I guess in order to go all the way in becoming a Sith, he had to kill every single Jedi. And the only way to learn the secret to immortality was to kill the Emperor's enemies, including the Jedi students. Is it dark? A little over the top? Sure. It's a bit much. But thankfully they don't show that. They imply it happens, but they don't show it. And there's no blood or gore or anything like that. You just learn afterwards that they're all gone. They're all dead. So Yoda and Obi-Wan survive this Jedi purge, and they have a final duel with Palpatine and Vader. Obi-Wan and Yoda split up. Why they split up, I've never fully understood. Even now, I don't understand the logic of splitting up. But they could have very easily divided up or stayed together and teamed up against one or the other Sith Lords. But either way, Yoda goes to confront Palpatine, and Obi-Wan goes to confront Vader. Vader is on a lava planet dispatched by Palpatine to wipe out the last of the Separatists and to end the Clone Wars. Anakin does so. He butchers all of the Separatists, all of the leaders, all of the soldiers, the guards. He leaves them all a big heaping mess. And then he just kind of stands on this in the Separatist bunker balcony and just watches the lava flow in the distance. And he kind of takes this moment to contemplate where he's at and what he's done. And you can tell that Vader, even though he has become a Sith, he's initiated as a Sith, he's still not mentally committed yet because he feels regret. He has Hayden Christensen. There's a close-up of Hayden Christensen's face, and you can see tears rolling down his face because he knows that he's done terrible things to save Padme. And he also feels guilty for his changing motivations because at this point Anakin's goal begins to shift from merely saving Padme, but it begins to shift more to obtaining more power for himself. So when Padme confronts him and says, come away with me, let's just go raise our children together, alone, away from Palpatine, away from the Jedi, away from everything, he has a perfect opportunity to leave and to do what he set out to do, which is to protect his wife. But he turns it down and says, we don't need to run away anymore. I'm in charge of everything. I've brought peace. And and then he offers Padme what he later offers Luke in Empire Strikes Back, to overthrow Palpatine and to take over the Empire as its new emperor. And so Padme, upon hearing this, begins to realize that Anakin is no longer Anakin, that she's hearing these words from a new person, from a Sith Lord, because the old Anakin would not have been obsessed with personal power. He would he took on a new personality at this point. So Obi-Wan emerges, and Anakin misunderstands and thinks that Padme is aligning with Obi-Wan. He chokes Padme in anger, and then there's a great duel between Anakin and Obi-Wan, the biggest, most expansive duel in the whole Star Wars series, and possibly the longest sword fight in film history. I'm not sure about that. I've heard that, but I'm not sure if that's accurate. But it's definitely a good contender for longest fight. It goes on for 15 minutes. Anakin and Obi-Wan, they fight with their sabers. Their saber duel itself is so fast, and so their blades almost look like blue blurs, like clouds. They look like just these big light flashes on the screen, to the point that you can barely see them. And what's funny is that that's not a camera trick. That's actually Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor fighting at a fast pace. They were that good, and they trained that hard. And what makes this fight interesting is they not only have a fast-paced sword fight, but they also have a lot of kicking, a lot of punching, a lot of choking. There's a great scene where Anakin grabs Obi-Wan by the throat, pins him down, then Obi-Wan gets his leg behind Anakin's head and kicks him in the back, and then Obi-Wan drop kicks Anakin in the face. Anakin flips onto his back. It's just like, it's a constant slugfest all the way through, and you can really feel the tension between these two. And it's definitely the best example of show, don't tell. You can see how much frustration Anakin has built up, that Vader has built up as Anakin. He resents Obi-Wan, he distrusts Obi-Wan, he feels Obi-Wan's holding back all these years. He feels that Obi-Wan stands between him and total power, and so he's just unleashing on Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan is being smart and keeping the defensive, trying to find an opening to kill Vader. On Coruscant, Yoda confronts Darth Sidious. He confronts the Emperor. But Yoda retreats from the fight. It is a glorious fight. It is a fight that involves force pushes, telekinesis, lightning, saber fights. It's great. But Yoda loses. He retreats from the fight. It ends in a draw, technically, but he retreats from the fight, completing this movie as a true revenge of the Sith, so to speak. Obi-Wan defeats Anakin, brutally injures him, leaves him burned and scarred, but Anakin, as Vader, is so fueled by the dark side that he's able to keep himself alive just long enough for the Emperor to retrieve Anakin and rebuild him as the cyborg we know as Vader. And then Obi-Wan, Yoda split up. Obi-Wan goes with Luke on Tatooine. Yoda goes to Dagobah, and Jimmy Smits, Bail Organa, takes and adopts baby Leia. That's it. That's the movie. It's pretty dark, but there's a little hope at the end for a new era of Jedi. The action sequences are great. The performances are strong. I disagree with the critics say that the performances are great. The action is excellent. The pacing is much better than 2 and 1, and better than 4, 5, and 6 as far as I'm concerned. And I love Ian McDiarmid. But big picture, Revenge of the Sith is a vast improvement over episodes 1 and 2. It is on par with A New Hope. Slightly better than Return of the Jedi, although very close. Actually, I often interchange between Return of the Jedi and Revenge of the Sith. Creative-wise and storytelling-wise, it stands out from all other Star Wars films in that this film fully commits to its Greek tragedy element, or its Greek tragedy direction. You got Anakin, who rises as a Jedi Knight. He falls to the dark side. He does terrible things. All of our heroes, except 2 or 3, are killed. And the movie ends on a somber but somewhat hopeful note. And the visuals are stunning. This movie is a great visual storyteller in itself. Lucas does a great job taking this film, putting lots of stuff in it, but still keeping the main focus on Anakin's fall to the dark side. You've still got the Clone Wars going on. You've still got Obi-Wan and Grievous doing their thing, and then you've got unrest in the Senate, but most of the focus is on Anakin falling and Palpatine working Anakin and manipulating the Jedi, manipulating the Republic and the clones and everything else around him. And Ian McDiarmid gives a solid performance as Palpatine / Darth Sidious. He is contemptuous, he is resentful, he can be kind, he can be bitter, he can be violent, he can be passive. He can switch from one personality to another in a heartbeat. But he can be so kindly and so grandfatherly-like that almost every time I see it, it fools me. Like, I know what's coming, I know what he's going to do, and I know what his intentions are, but his performance is so believable that I'm actually taking this in and thinking, wow, this guy really understands Anakin. But the performances, Ian McDiarmid, Ewan McGregor, Frank Oz, Jimmy Smits as Bail Organa, everybody gives a solid performance. Hayden Christensen does too. He gets a lot of crap because some of the dialogue, the romance dialogue he is given, is pretty flat at times. But his facial expressions, his physical acting is excellent. And a lot of his line delivery is actually pretty good. He definitely sells the vulnerable, emotionally devastated, traumatized character. Like, he definitely encapsulates the fallen hero with a dark side very, very well. And I hope we get to see him in future Star Wars projects in, like, maybe some kind of a spin-off series. I've heard he might be cast to play in the Obi-Wan TV series. I hope so. I hope we get to see him, even if it's just a flashback scene. I'd love to see him again. But I highly recommend Revenge of the Sith for its 15th anniversary. I highly recommend you check this movie out. If you didn't enjoy it the first time, I urge you to give this movie a second chance. It's a solid film. It's definitely one of my favorites. It's a good one, so I can't praise it enough. So go check it out. May the Force be with you guys.